Anweisungen und an wen gegeben hat, kann ich nicht speziell umreißen.
Nuremberg, the doctor who looked into the abyss. There is an old warning from Nietzsche. When you look long into an abyss, the abyss also looks into you. In 1945, Dr. Douglas Kelley didn't just look, he moved in. He was tasked with the most dangerous autopsy in history, not of a body, but of a soul. The 2025 film Nuremberg has captured the world's imagination. It pits the fragile sanity of the victor against the theatrical psychosis of the vanquished. But as we watch Russell Crowe and Rami Malek battle in a damp cell, we have to ask, where does the history end and where does the Hollywood myth-making begin? The film presents an intimate chamber drama, but the reality was a bureaucratic leviathan. While the movie focuses on a tight circle of villains, the real courtroom was a sea of 22 titans of terror. It wasn't just Göring, it was the entire nervous system of the Third Reich, the bankers, the generals, and the architects of the gas chambers, all squeezed into one room. Notice the uniform. In the film, Göring's suit looks like a ghost of his former glory. In 1945, it was literally falling off him. Having lost 60 pounds after being forced off his morphine-heavy diet, his skin hung like draped parchment. The Allies stripped his medals, leaving only the empty stitch holes, a visual scar of a king turned into a captive. The movie accurately depicts Kelley's first victory, breaking Göring's addiction, but it misses the clinical cruelty of it. This wasn't a friendship, it was a chemical disarmament. Kelley needed Göring sharp, not for the sake of his health, but so the world could watch a genius, not a junkie, answer for the Holocaust. In the film's climax, Kelley is fired in a blaze of dramatic glory. History is quieter and more professional. The linchpin of Kelley's departure wasn't a scandal, it was exhaustion. He had left months before the final verdict. He wasn't chased out by the army, he was chased out by the stench of the evidence. The movie gives us a physical confrontation between Kelley and his rival, Gustav Gilbert. It's classic cinema, the ruthless scientist versus the empathetic moralist. In reality, their war was fought in the margins of their notebooks. Their blows were made of ink and ego, not bone and blood. Perhaps the most absurd fabrication is Justice Jackson's trip to blackmail the Pope. Historians call this pure cinema. It replaces the slow grind of international law with the high-speed thriller of a political thriller. It never happened, but Hollywood knows that truth is a poor architect of suspense. The film paints Kelley as the savior of Göring's family. It's a touching subplot, but the reality was a cold post-war winter. Annie Göring didn't find a neat ending. She found a labor camp and a life of isolation. Her daughter, Etta, didn't grow up in a movie set reunion. She grew up in the shadow of a monumental shame. Why does this movie work? Because it hits on a terrifying truth Kelley actually discovered. He went in looking for a Nazi virus, a mental deformity that explained the evil. Instead, he found that the Nazis were disturbingly normal. In the movie, we see the intellectual sparring. In reality, Kelley gave them IQ tests. Göring scored a 138. This is the contrasting horror. These weren't mindless brutes. They were highly functioning intellectuals who chose to build a factory for death. In the movie, we see the intellectual sparring. In reality, Kelley gave them IQ tests. Göring scored a 138. This is the contrasting horror. These weren't mindless brutes. They were highly functioning intellectuals who chose to build a factory for death. The film ends with the trial's conclusion, but the real story has a darker systemic symmetry that Hollywood was too afraid to show. Goring escaped the noose by swallowing a cyanide pill, a final act of defiant control. Now here's the fact that is more haunting than any fiction. 12 years after the trial, on New Year's Day, 1958, Dr. Douglas Kelley walked into his kitchen. He was a successful doctor, a father, and a renowned author. But the shadow of the cell had never left him. In front of his horrified wife and children, Kelley picked up a capsule. He swallowed potassium cyanide, the exact same poison Goring had used. The doctor had spent so long trying to understand the monster that he ended up replicating his exit. Enjoy Nuremberg for its operatic performances and its moral weight. It is a masterpiece of drama, but do not mistake it for a map. The real history of Nuremberg is not a story of a hero and a villain. It is a story of how evil is contagious and how sometimes the man sent to study the darkness never makes it back to the light.